They can spin it around like this.
New Zealand fans call him a pest. South African fans call him a hero. But everyone agrees on one thing. If anyone's gonna tear down the Eden Park curse, it's this 5'7" blonde menace. Faf de Klerk isn't just a rugby player, he's a symbol of defiance. The kind of character who gets under the skin of rivals while inspiring absolute loyalty from his own teammates. For South Africa, his story isn't only about scrums, kicks, and tackles. It's about leadership, the fight for respect, and the possibility of rewriting history that has hung heavy for almost a century.
Eden Park stands as the ultimate battleground. Since 1937, the Springboks have walked onto that turf and walked off defeated. Generations have come and gone, legends have risen and retired, but the result at Auckland's fortress has stayed the same. No South African captain has ever held his head high there. That's the backdrop against which Faf steps onto the field, a weight of 88 years pressing on his shoulders, but also an opportunity no one can ignore.
What makes the story powerful isn't just the numbers or the streaks. It's the way a player like Faf can influence both sides of the rivalry. In South Africa, children copy his energy, his no-nonsense tackles, his relentless drive. In New Zealand, fans mutter his name with equal parts frustration and respect, because deep down, they know the game shifts when he's involved. He's not the biggest, not the strongest, but he finds ways to set the tempo and unsettle even the most disciplined opponents. Leadership in rugby doesn't always come from the captain's armband. Sometimes it comes from the halfback who refuses to back down, who keeps talking, who pushes his pack forward even when the odds look impossible. That's what Faf represents for South Africa, a voice that won't go quiet, a competitor who refuses to see history as destiny. And so the stage is set. The curse of Eden Park looms large, but for the first time in decades, there's a sense that one man could change it. What happens when a stadium that has swallowed generations of Springbok ambition collides with the defiance of a player built for the big moments? And yet, being underestimated shaped him. Every training session, every game was another chance to prove people wrong. Coaches admired his refusal to disappear in the shadow of bigger players. Teammates noticed how he played with an energy that lifted everyone else. What started as a boyhood dream slowly turned into a pathway: club rugby, provincial rugby, and eventually the big stage. But what stood out most wasn't just his rise. It was the way he carried himself. He didn't arrive in the national setup trying to be a star. He arrived determined to do the dirty work, to serve the team and to create order where others saw pressure.
That leadership quality is what coaches can't teach. It's what separates the good from the unforgettable. Faf could command respect from men twice his size because he earned it through actions, not words. South Africans admire resilience, and he embodied it in every way.
New Zealand, on the other hand, quickly learned that this wasn't a player who could be ignored. They built game plans around him, targeting him physically, trying to cut off his influence. But Faf never folded. The more they tested him, the stronger his impact became. Over time, he carved out a unique reputation, not a superstar in the traditional sense, but the ultimate irritant to the All Blacks machine.
And that's where the legend starts to form. Because Eden Park doesn't fall to brute force alone. It falls to someone willing to disrupt the rhythm, to test the psychology, and to take risks others shy away from. South Africa has tried for decades to overpower New Zealand. In Auckland, what happens when the answer comes not from size, but from the smallest man on the pitch?
The rivalry between South Africa and New Zealand has always been more than rugby. It's about identity, pride, and proving who stands tallest in the global game. Each generation brings new names, but the core tension remains the same. When the Springboks take on the All Blacks, it's not just a match, it's a test of belief. And in that fiery rivalry, Faf de Klerk has carved out his own chapter.
Ask any New Zealand fan and they'll tell you they might respect Siya Kolisi's leadership, they might admire Handré Pollard's composure, but when it comes to frustration, no one triggers them quite like Faf. He's the one chirping at the referee, scrapping for every inch, slowing the tempo when it suits his side, then firing a pass that flips the momentum. He's the itch the All Blacks can't scratch, the one player who gets under their skin while keeping his team moving forward. For South Africa, that edge matters. It's not just about technical ability, it's about setting a tone. Obviously, rugby is a game of fine margins. And when two heavyweights clash, mental edges can matter more than muscle. Faf's contribution is in those margins. He knows how to pull opponents out of rhythm, how to frustrate them into mistakes, and how to rally his forwards in the heat of battle. But here's the deeper story. His leadership doesn't stop on the field.
Off the pitch, teammates talk about a player who never switches off, who's always focused on standards. He's the first to call out complacency, the one who demands accountability, and the one who reminds everyone that South Africa isn't just playing for themselves, they're carrying the weight of a nation. That attitude has a way of rubbing off. Younger players see it and raise their game, veterans feed off it and stay sharp. So when the Eden Park curse looms and the weight of history threatens to suffocate, you need someone who won't shrink. You need a player who embraces the fight, no matter the odds, and that's why so many look to Faf. He doesn't just play rugby, he plays with conviction, and conviction can shift the balance of history. But the question still hangs in the air: can conviction alone overturn nearly 9 decades of failure at the most unforgiving stadium in the game? To understand why Eden Park holds such weight, you have to look at its history. It isn't just a rugby ground, it's a monument to All Blacks dominance. Since 1994, New Zealand hasn't lost a single match there. That's more than 50 consecutive victories, spanning generations of players, coaches, and rivalries. Teams from around the world have flown in with confidence, only to leave humbled. For the Springboks, the pain runs even deeper. Their last victory at Eden Park came way back in 1937. Nearly 9 decades of frustration, near misses, and bitter memories have piled up. For South African fans, Eden Park has become a symbol of unfinished business. The Boks have beaten the All Blacks in World Cups. They've beaten them in Johannesburg and Wellington, even in the Rugby Championship deciders. But Auckland's fortress remains unconquered, and each passing year makes the streak more intimidating. It's not just about rugby anymore. It's psychological. South Africans arrive in Auckland carrying history like a weight on their shoulders, while the All Blacks feed off the aura of invincibility the stadium provides. That's where the story of leadership becomes critical. Beating New Zealand at Eden Park won't come from sheer talent alone. It requires a mindset shift, a willingness to ignore the burden of history and play as if the weight doesn't exist. That's exactly why Faf de Klerk is central to this story. He's never been defined by his size or conventional expectations. His whole career has been built on defying assumptions and pushing boundaries. The same mentality that got him from Nelspruit to 2 World Cups could be the very mentality needed to take the Springboks where no South African side has gone in nearly 90 years. For his teammates, that mentality is infectious. A front row forward might not relate to his height or his speed, but they see the same spirit in his play that they value in their own. They see a player who doesn't quit, who throws himself into tackles against men twice his size, and who takes the responsibility of controlling the match without hesitation. That earns respect, and respect is the foundation of belief. New Zealand fans may dismiss him as an irritant, but deep down they know why he matters. They've seen how he disrupts rhythm, how he forces adjustments, and how he sets the emotional temperature of a game. At Eden Park, that kind of influence could be decisive, because if the Boks go in believing they're already beaten, the streak will continue. If they go in with the defiance of a leader like Faf, the story changes. But here's a twist that makes it even more fascinating. The Eden Park curse isn't just about New Zealand's dominance. It's also about South Africa's relationship with pressure. In big moments, the Springboks often thrive by embracing adversity, by digging deeper when the world counts them out. Yet in Auckland, that formula has failed for nearly a century. Why? Is it the stadium, the travel, the aura, or something else entirely? That's the puzzle that surrounds every South Africa-New Zealand clash in Auckland. And this time, with Faf de Klerk at the heart of the team, the question becomes sharper: can one man's defiance finally crack the fortress? Or will Eden Park add another chapter to its long, brutal history of sending Springboks home empty-handed? By the time Faf de Klerk steps onto a field against the All Blacks, he is more than just a player, he is a strategist in motion. Years of professional rugby, from the domestic arenas to Super Rugby finals and international battles, have honed his instincts. He understands how pressure affects opponents, how momentum can shift in a single pass, and how leadership is often about timing, not volume. His influence spreads beyond the ball. Forwards tighten their scrums, backs adjust their positioning, and even seasoned veterans find themselves responding to his drive and precision. What separates Faf from others is not just skill, but consistency under pressure. In the Rugby World Cup of 2019, he became pivotal in South Africa's triumph, not through flamboyance, but by controlling the rhythm, anticipating opposition strategies, and rallying his teammates in moments that demanded clarity and courage. His defensive pressure, often subtle yet unrelenting, changed the flow of games. It forced errors at critical moments, created opportunities, and built the foundation for victory. These contributions don't always make headlines, but they define outcomes. Off the ball, he's equally commanding. Younger players absorb his work ethic and composure. Teammates trust his decisions implicitly, because they have witnessed them succeed repeatedly. He has a way of communicating authority without being domineering, a presence that naturally elevates the entire squad. And when facing a stadium like Eden Park, where the aura of invincibility can intimidate even the best, his leadership is the anchor. As the Springboks approach Eden Park, the question is not whether they can compete. They can. The real question is whether one man's vision, experience, and unflinching resolve can finally undo decades of disappointment. Can Faf de Klerk, the player who thrives where others might falter, break a nearly 90-year curse at rugby's most imposing stadium, or will history assert itself once again, reminding all that some legacies are stubborn? For the All Blacks, this is unnerving. New Zealand teams are usually built on discipline, precision, and the assumption that opponents will follow predictable patterns. Faf upends that expectation. He probes for weaknesses, forces adjustments, and tests the limits of patience. His halfback role becomes more than distribution. It becomes strategy incarnate. He knows when to accelerate the pace, when to slow it down, and how to manipulate the psychological ebb and flow of the contest.
South Africa thrives on this influence. His forwards sense the rhythm. His backs position themselves with confidence, and the team moves as a cohesive unit rather than a collection of individuals. Faf's leadership manifests quietly yet powerfully. Small decisions on the field accumulate, shifting control in subtle but decisive ways. He embodies the principle that the mental dimension of rugby can be just as critical as the physical. History shows that Eden Park isn't conquered solely with force or skill. It demands a mind capable of thinking 2 steps ahead, of turning pressure into opportunity, and of instilling belief in those around him. And that is exactly what Faf brings, a player whose presence alone can tilt the scales, forcing opponents to question their own instincts while keeping his own team's confidence intact. Will the aura of nearly 9 decades of defeat be too much to overcome? Or will Faf de Klerk, with his intelligence, timing, and leadership, finally tilt the balance in favor of South Africa? In the final moments before kickoff, everything comes into focus. Teammates feed off his energy, aware that his decisions will shape the flow. The forwards tighten, the backs position themselves perfectly, and the squad operates as a single unit, guided by his instinct and judgment. In subtle ways, he has already shifted the psychological balance. The All Blacks, formidable as they are, feel the pressure of a player who is calm, calculated, and unyielding. This is the essence of leadership in rugby. Beyond physicality, beyond skill, it is about presence, awareness, and timing. Faf embodies all of it. Every pass, every movement, every choice is infused with intention. He controls tempo, tests defenses, and instills belief. And in a place where history has repeatedly favored one side, that combination becomes powerful. Eden Park has swallowed countless Springbok hopes, but the story isn't written yet. With Faf at the center, the possibility exists that the nearly 90-year curse could finally be challenged. His legacy, built on leadership, resilience, and the ability to inspire, is already secure. Yet the stadium waits, silent but expectant, for the outcome that will add the final line to this chapter. History is heavy, but leadership can move mountains. And at that moment, one man, standing 5'7" tall, blonde and underestimated by many, holds the potential to rewrite nearly a century of rugby legend. What happens next is the story that keeps the world watching.